Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say today we have Adam, who's a freelance film producer. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing great. Hi, Tom. Thanks very much for having me on. I'm really excited now for this.
You're very welcome. Likewise, Adam. Adam, first of all, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your career to date in video, please?
I'm a recent graduate from MTU, Munster Technological University. I was doing creative digital media, and in my last kind of year there, I started freelance video work with short films and client work for different for either companies or for just personal videos. That's what I've kind of taken up now in my time.
And I think obviously video is your main area, but I'd love you to touch on your creative process, how you get set up and you create video and you're selling yourself a bit short. You had a film selected for the Indie Film Festival down in Cork just over a year ago. So yeah, I want you to kind of tell us all about your video work.
The film festival was great. So I suppose on that note, even getting into that, I always came at it from a video editor's perspective, and that film came about where we were between semesters and kind of looking to pass the time. So I reached out to a classmate of mine and if they needed any help with video editing. But as things spiraled on, we started planning out this film, and during the film process, I ended up taking a lot more of the producing and the cinematography and on-set duties. And I suppose it was interesting because I always kind of came at it from the perspective where I'm going to be editing this later, so maybe let's shoot it this way because I know that'll help this. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but it definitely helped us. Yeah, maybe I was cutting corners in certain ways like that, but it definitely worked for us. But yeah, it's a joy really kind of being running around on that set doing stuff like that. So I suppose kind of on that note, as I said, like always coming at it from the editor's perspective, it seems to work because the last thing we need is a couple hours of footage, and then you just kind of hand it off to someone, and they don't really know what view you want, what kind of message you're trying to get across, and really the kind of beats of where you want certain cuts and different edits. So making those films was, it was a real fun experience because it kind of opened up my eyes to both sides of the camera, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And let's say we have a lot of content creators and businesses listening to the show. Can you give them a breakdown of how can you even get set up? What go-to video equipment do you think someone that wants to start off creating video content would need?
So equipment, you'd be surprised. Like you'd imagine, like you'd think you'd need like a nice DSLR camera or a lot of really expensive equipment to kind of get started, but realistically you don't. You can kind of work your way up to that. Even during my time in college, I was an intern at somewhere called the Vid Academy, which is run by a woman called Judy. And a big part of what her company teaches people is like seminars on how to just set up with your phone, just and different kind of hacks you can do at home to get better lighting, get better sound, and some cost-effective equipment you can get. And if you kind of want to wrap up from there, maybe some cheap lavalier mics just to have on if you're doing voiceover for video. And then in terms of the video editing software, there's probably cheaper options out there, but editing software would be the one place I would recommend that you invest in and just get something like Adobe Premiere or the Adobe Suite. Just the ease of access with it, it's immense. I've had a lot of success using Premiere my whole time through college and doing freelance work as well.
And you obviously Adobe's mentioned several times on the show over, and it is a really good platform for editing. Where could someone learn, how to get set up? What do you think are the best sources for someone to learn how to use such softwares?
Um, a lot of it for us was self taught. Like we were kind of shown the door for it with college, but even when I was doing my own projects, I found myself, okay, I want to do this specific thing, or I want to know how to get Premiere to do this specific thing in this specific scene. So you end up a lot of the time just going on YouTube, and there's a lot of free classes on YouTube that are really in depth, and there's some really talented channels up there that dedicate their whole time to showing people how to get the most out of the software. So and with Adobe in particular, I feel a lot of it is like you kind of say self taught, but it's more trial and error. Where you'll sit down, you'll edit along with everything that you know, and then you look up how to do that one specific tool, and then you kind of always have that in your toolbox. So it's always just kind of building and building and just trial by fire that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. YouTube is definitely one of the best sources for learning, especially for things like video editing. Looking at yourself for a second, is there any other softwares that you want to mention that you use potentially around your video work?
So again with I suppose with Adobe, like After Effects is really good if you need certain just certain effects, even if it's not a very heavy effect video. So with One Night in Cork, for example, we had a sequence where um two of the characters were communicating over text for a bit, so I needed to kind of set up motion graphic templates for kind of text bubbles to pop up on the screen. So again, quick YouTube tutorial popped on YouTube for that. Open up After Effects, and it's really helpful for small little things like that. And then you always have that in your bank as well. You can go back and use that motion graphics for any other project you need. So it's worth kind of spreading out and using that.
It might be linked, but is there one particular campaign or some work that you're really proud of that you'd like to highlight on this show?
Um, I suppose there'd be two. So mainly, I suppose, yeah, One Night in Cork would be the most notable thing that I've worked on. We were very lucky with that. Well, fortunate. We put a lot of work into it, and it was really fun to do. And we were lucky to be selected into the Cork Indie Festival in 2021, the Liftoff Global Network sessions in 2022, and the Underground Cinema Award short films in 2022 as well. So it was really nice because it started off, as I said, as a project just to kind of keep ourselves busy between semesters and between lockdowns, and it came a bit of a labor of love. And myself and Daniel Heafy, he's the writer and collaborator on the film as well. He deserves as much credit as I do. But we put a lot of work into it, and we got some help from friends as well, just on certain days helping us with equipment. But that was really nice to kind of to see that come to fruition and be selected to a few festivals. It's something I don't think either of us could have imagined. And as well, we collaborated again for our final year project. So in the course, we worked on a project called Storybox, where we used 3D video mapping projection software. Um, so we took the idea that we wanted to do was we take a narrative and project it over a 3D object, so it could tell multiple different sides to a story. So the example we always used with it was if someone says they're working from home, you might have one image of someone sitting down on their laptop all day. But with the project, we shot 6 different scenes where the setup was called working from home, and on one screen, yes, it looked like someone was in a suit, working on their day to day work. But on another panel of the cube, it shows they have a tab open with their fantasy football, another tab open, they're actually in their pajamas from a different angle, and just different things like that. And it was really fun coming up with different angles of telling the same story concurrently. And it was nice seeing that in our exhibition for final year.
Love that. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And like, where do you find your inspiration and insights from? Is there any sources you go to get new insights in the industry?
In the industry, I suppose nowadays everyone seems to flock towards TikTok. It's tough. It's tough not going there. And even if it seems more like just going to what sounds are being used constantly, because they're used in different ways. Like some marketing can be done with it. It's just people making something funny, different things like that. So in terms of the work we would do, um, yeah, like kind of just seeing how people can get clever with the short amount of time that they have. It's not as much so now
Yeah.
because they've extended the time on TikTok, but it's something I always really admired in the early days of it, and especially with a platform years ago called Vine, is that you were given such a short amount of time, but people still found ways of making something really funny or really clever and something that you wanted to go back and watch again and again. So I always admire that about the platform.
The TikTok one, from a video point of view, it's probably been out a little while now, but Netflix with the Wednesday show, I know they had the TikTok dance, and there was a iconic scene early on in the show. I haven't seen the show, but I
Yeah.
know, I'm aware of the dance, and obviously that went massive on TikTok, which I'm sure was a big part of promoting it, and it was a strategy they had created beforehand. But is that the kind of link you're trying to say between like films, TV show pieces and stuff, and link them into Monday culture on a TikTok and a platform like that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what, like that Wednesday scene in particular is the perfect example, because yeah, you could have gone off, you could have shot your TV show, your film, and it's all ready to go, and you're waiting for the release date. And as you said, you can kind of go in, and people know now, they'll see a scene where, okay, that'll probably catch on, or that'll be funny, or something like that. And I suppose with that one in particular, it was great because it was synced up with music in particular, so they were able to kind of hit the ground running with that and just feed that out. But yes, so if you have something in a show where you're like, okay, that scene in particular, really proud of that. That's something we can market. That's something you can do. It's definitely something that can survive on a platform like TikTok, especially if the show itself is really popular. It's kind of a win-win.
And I'm guessing that same music's used on the show, but do you think that was a deliberate sync and cut out, like as in they created that scene with the mind of uh, a voice, like a tune in the background, being applied for TikTok? Like they were thinking of trending sound when they created that scene.
I'd be very surprised if that wasn't it. Whether or not the idea to do it, like obviously, I think the idea for the scene came first, and then they figured, okay, this is perfect. We can snip that out. That'll be what we use to market it. Um, Whether or not they thought the dance itself would kind of take off as people used it, but like, yeah, I definitely think that they saw that and figured this is marketable. This is how we can push the show, especially for a show like that where uh, the characters themselves, the whole idea is that they're very monotone and kind of not really not a whole lot of emotion. So they had to find somewhere to kind of get people hyped up and follow it along.
It's really interesting. And like, is that something you would see the digital industry going more into now? Is that something that you actively look at yourself? Do you? We've had people on the show talk about analyzing the trends in TikTok and then creating either product or business campaigns and stuff using the trend. But is that something you see evolving and something you actively would be looking at?
It's something you have to look at, and it's definitely something that's always evolving. But it's also such a volatile media where you can identify something that is really popular and really works on TikTok, and okay, I want to use that for our marketing campaign or whatnot. But by the time you go and shoot your video and put it up, the trend could have moved on. So it's really interesting that you can go and you can analyze and see what works and what doesn't and try and hop on the train, but not everything lands, and it's such a fast moving market on there that it's tough to rely on it. Like if you find a trend, you hop on at the right time, perfect, and it'll benefit you. But you just kind of need to kind of roll with the punches where if something goes up and it doesn't work, you just need to kind of keep moving. You don't need to sit around and think, why didn't that work? Let's go back and look at, okay, this many views kind of worked and this, that, and the other thing. It's so out of your control. You just need to kind of keep moving and keep up with the trends, I suppose is the best way to sum it up.
Lastly, we always ask on the show, if you could bottle up one personality trait you have yourself, Adam, that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
I suppose with myself, it's probably flexibility. As I said, like going into the short film work, I went into it thinking, okay, I'll be the video editor on this, and I ended up taking up way more roles than I thought. But it was really enjoyable. But applying that to other projects where you never know what might come up, where you need to change your original view, you need to add this in. Maybe a client changes their mind about something and add it in. You just kind of need to go with it, because if you get really stuck on a specific view for it, it can really bog down everything else around it. So you could be really held down. You really want to get one good scene in there, and then you're kind of struggling to edit everything in around it. Whereas you need to kind of look at it as the big picture, and whether it's a video, just like a personal video for someone, or it's a big client video, you just kind of need to have the ability to have a back and forth and be flexible on a project.
Love it. And Adam, if people want to get in touch with you and they want to learn more about your work or even use you for video content creation, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, so I'm available on LinkedIn if you want to reach out to me there, and I have my own website as well. It's just adamtwomey.com. And if you want to reach out to me over email that way, or just on LinkedIn, I'm always responding.
Love it. Thanks for being on the show, Adam, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks very much. Really appreciate it.